Good day, sir. Good day, classmates. Comparative statistics, income and substitution effects. Comparative statistics is a tool used to predict the effects of exogenous variables on market outcomes. If the price of a goods increases, then there will be two different effects, known as income and substitution effects. The income effect is a change in the consumption of goods by consumers based on their incomes. This means consumers will generally spend more if they experience an increase in income, and they may spend less if their income drops. Consumers may opt to purchase expensive goods in lesser quantities or cheaper goods in higher quantities depending on their circumstance and preferences.
Income effect can be both direct or indirect. Direct is related to the change of income. When a consumer makes changes to the way he or she spends because of a change in income. For example, a consumer may spend less on clothing because of his income has dropped. Indirect must make buying decisions not related to their income. When a consumer is faced with making buying decisions not related to their income. For example, food prices may go up, leaving the consumer with less income to spend on other items. This may opt the consumer to cut back on dining out. What is a substitution effect? Substitution effect happens when consumer replaces cheaper items into expensive one when their financial condition has changed.
Substitution negative effect for consumers. So the substitution effect is due to the consumers switching cheaper product as prices increase, can both negative and positive effect for consumers. So when the products first is low price, so and then switching to increase prices, so that's why positive and negative effect for consumers. It is a positive for consumers since it means that they can continue to afford a particular product even if prices increase or their incomes decline. However, the substitution effect isn't always positive for consumers, but instead can be negative since it can limit product choices. An expensive product more attractive for consumer, which can also lead to the substitution effect. So, those are the substitution negative effect for consumers.
So I will show the graph for the substitution effect and income effect for the price change.
We will begin by drawing the axes and labeling them. Meat and fish. Next, I will draw the original budget line. This would be B1. And let's say a consumer would be able to afford 12 kilos of meat and 12 kilos of fish. And when he faces the budget constraint, he chooses some optimal combination of fish and meat using the indifference curve. So I will draw the indifference curve. This. As I. Label them as I. And let's say this is his original choice. Point A, where he is consuming, let's say 5 kilos of meat. Next, we will see what happens when the price of meat changes. So I will draw the new budget line. This is B2. The indifference curve, 2. And this point here is B. And let's say he's now consuming 10 kilos of meat, and he faces this new budget constraint. So the total effect of the price change is that after the price of meat decreased. So from 5 to 10, the total price is 5. He consumes 5 additional kilos of meat. Consumption of meat goes up for 2 reasons. First is that after the price change, meat are now cheaper relative to fish than they were before. Anytime one of the price of the good increases, the consumer consumes more of that good. And that is what we call the substitution effect. Because of the decrease of the price of meat, the consumer can now consume more meat than before. So that's the first reason. The total effect is the substitution effect plus the income effect. So for the second reason is that the consumer has now more purchasing power than before. The real income has increased causes the increase in meat consumption. That's the second reason for the price change, the income effect. So to separate the substitution effect from the total effect, we will draw a new budget line. B3. So B3 is parallel to B2 because it represents the cheaper price for meat. It must be tangent to the original indifference curve. So here, point C. And let's say he's now consuming 6 kilos of meat. So the effect of the change relative prices holding income constant is the increased meat consumption of 1 kilo. That is the substitution effect. Substitution effect. The movement from A to C is the substitution effect. The movement from C to B is the impact of falling prices through the increasing consumers' purchasing power. Because meat is now cheaper, the consumer has now purchasing power than before. So the income effect is the difference between 6 to 10, which is 4. So from A to C, substitution effect. Movement from C to B, income effect. That's all.